Tonight I was gonna finish the red, green, white limit break commander deck, which is theme is equip weapons and raise your stats past 7 power. Um, but after I do this, maybe in the next couple of days, watch out for the Ninja Turtles commander deck, which is a 5 color turtle power. Partner with allies and buff your team. Also, watch out for some mystery box openings, which will be um, interesting because they've been um, in my closet for a couple of years. There'll be, um, some older sets. I believe we left off with Wrecking Ball. It's a legendary artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 7/7 and can't be blocked by creatures with power less than 2. So all of a sudden, even if you have a mediocre strength creature, it becomes, a base 7/7. And then if you're going against, a token deck or just someone with a bunch of little creatures can't be blocked by a creature with power 2 or less, so um, forces your opponent to either block with some bigger guys or to just take the damage, which where you start with 40 regular life, you know, 7 might not hurt bad once, but a couple of times you're gonna want to start dealing with it. Um, Equip legendary creature 3 or just equip is 7. Austere Command. It's a sorcery for 4 and 2 planes. Choose 2. Destroy all artifacts. Destroy all enchantments. Destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less. Destroy all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. Um, Seems like a worse version of the um, Path to Exile or whatever it's called that is a similar cost, but you can potentially choose everything. Um, Although I think it's like exile all creatures, exile all graveyards, exile all enchantments, exile all artifacts. You could choose one or multiple of whatever it happens to be for, you know, 6 mana or whatever, like, something comparable. Bastion Protector. It's a 3/3 creature, a human soldier for 2 in the plains. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible. Which normally you would only have one commander unless you have commanders that have partner, or if you somehow are stealing an opponent's commander. Then you might have more than one. So seems kind of interesting to be like that specific. When you could have an equipment for giving +2/+2 and indestructible, but I guess at the same point, um, an artifact equipment could be targeted. You could destroy a target artifact, and then your commander would no longer have the buff and indestructible. So, could go either way, I guess. And I mean, as a creature, you could remove the creature too, I suppose. Bronze Guardian. It's a star 5. It's an artifact creature, a golem for 4 and a plains. Has double strike and war 2. The reminder text says whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player pays 2. Other artifacts you control have war 2. This creature's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. So in an artifact deck, this is exponentially going to get stronger and stronger. And it has double strike, ward, and gives your other artifacts ward. So, it has protection and hits for more damage you know, where it has double strike, if first strike's not enough, it goes to normal combat. So, potentially pretty strong in a deck that has artifact equipment like Swan. Clever Concealment. It's an instant for 2 and 2 planes. Convoke. The reminder text says your creatures can help cast a spell. Each creature can tap while casting the spell, pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. Any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. The reminder text says treat them and anything attached to them as though they don't exist until your next turn. So it's kind of like they're on the battlefield, but they're not because they can't be targeted. Or, kind of like they have a cloak around them so they can't be seen. Puresteel Paladin. It's a 2/2 creature, a human knight for 2 planes. Whenever an equipment you control enters, you may draw a card. Metal Craft. Equipments you control have equip 0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. So, reducing the equipment cost down to 0 for your equipments, and also drawing a card when equipment's on the battlefield. I mean, it's a May ability, so like if you're running against someone that has a mill deck and you're worried that you will get milled out if you're drawing too many cards in addition to getting milled, I could see choosing not to draw, or if you're just your library is somehow getting low because you're drawing between this and something else, maybe. Unfinished Business. It's a sorcery for 3 and 2 planes. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then return up to 2 target auras and or equipment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to that creature. The reminder text says if the auras can't enchant that creature, then remove. Oh, they remain in your graveyard. Vanquish the Horde. It's a sorcery for 6 and 2 planes. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. So it's a board wipe for 8, which seems like a lot, but the cost is reduced by 1 generic for each creature on the battlefield. So you're potentially paying as little as 2 planes to destroy all creatures. I mean, obviously you're destroying your own creatures unless you phase them out, like that one card talked about a few cards ago, or, find some other creative way around that. Chaos Warp. It's an instant for 2 in the mountain. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. Kind of interesting because normally I don't think of red bouncing stuff back to the library or hand, but some colors do things that more often, and some do it less often, and you still have those niche things that oh, that should have been blue, but it's red. Hellkite Tyrant. It's a 6/5 creature, a dragon for 4 and 2 planes, has flying and trample. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. So where you have the one creature in here that it's a star for power and it's based on how many artifacts, this guy's gonna steal all your opponent's artifacts to bump that guy's power up, so that's pretty cool. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. So built-in win con, this deck cares about artifacts, but also this particular creature steals your opponent's artifacts, so you're potentially getting to that alternate win con faster. Professional Facebreaker. It's a 2/3 creature, a human warrior for 2 in a mountain. Has menace. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Sacrifice the treasure. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Disseminate. It's a sorcery for 2, a mountain and a plains. Destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. The reminder text says you can't cast this spell unless you have legal choices for all its targets. So it's a removal spell with 4 different card types as their targets, which is pretty cool. Yes, it limits you to having to have legal targets for everything before you can play it, but that could go either way depending on what your opponents are playing. Armory Automaton. It's a 2/2 artifact creature, a construct for 3. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, you may attach any number of target equipments to it. The reminder text says control of the equipment doesn't change. Champion's Helm. It's an artifact equipment for 3. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. As long as equipped creature is legendary, it has hexproof. The reminder text says it can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls. The equip cost is 1. Conqueror's Flail. It's a artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. As long as this equipment is attached to a creature, your opponent can't cast spells during your turn. So the ability to stop or prevent your opponents from playing on your turn, that's pretty strong by itself. And also buffing your creature for each color of permanents you control, like that's just the icing on the cake on top of, something that's already pretty good. Dark Steel Plate. It's an artifact equipment for 3. It has indestructible. Equipped creature has indestructible. The equip cost is 2. So a lot of times, either an equipment or a creature might be able to be targeted, but this makes it so both the creature and the equipment are indestructible, so anything that's targeting that says destroy can't be destroyed. Yes, you can, exile the stuff, but forces your opponents to use more specific type of removal. Inspiring Statuary. It's an artifact for 3. Non-artifact spells you control have improvise. The reminder text says your artifacts can help cast those spells. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1. Sword of Amulet. It's a legendary artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. When an equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Equip 2. So, it buffs the creature given it's just a single 1/1 buff. It's not based on, +1/+1 for each color, like that one recent equipment, or it's not based on how many creatures or how many lands. It's not anything crazy. It's just a single 1/1 buff. But the fact that it tutors for basic land when you attack, that's pretty good. And I mean, not only, does playing out land help you have more resources to play more stuff, but thinning your deck is also good to have better chances of drawing what you want to get. So, yeah, pretty strong, card. Thumbs up in my opinion. Battlefield Forge. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can tap it for a mountain or plains. This land deals 1 damage to you. Bonder's Enclave. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can pay 3 and tap, draw a card, activate only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So, the draw card based on power 4 or greater kind of reminds me of Garrick's Uprising, only this is on a land, and you're paying 3 when you tap the land every time you're trying to draw, versus Garrick's Uprising being an enchantment that you're drawing at the beginning of your either your upkeep or end step. I don't recall. Brushland. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can tap for a forest or a plains. This land deals 1 damage to you. Kind of interesting that they didn't put these same kind of lands together. Canopy Vista. The land, forest, plains. The reminder text says tap to add a forest or plains. This land enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Cinder Glade. The land forest mountain, mountain forest. The reminder text says tap to add a mountain or a forest. This land enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So it's interesting that 2 out of the 3 of these are together, but not all of them. Clifftop Retreat. It's a land that enters tapped unless you control a mountain or plains. Tap to add a mountain or a plains. Exotic Orchard. It's a land that taps to add 1 mana of any color a land an opponent controls could produce. Firelit Thicket. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can pay a mountain or a forest. Tap. Add 2 mountains, or add a mountain and a forest, or add 2 forests. So it's kind of interesting that you're paying 1 of the specific colors to get some combination of 2 of one color, 1 of one of the other, or 2 of the other color. But, very niche situation that could be helpful, paying 1 mana to get 2, of whatever kind of color combo you need. Fortified Village. The land, as this land enters, you may reveal a forest or plains card from your hand. If you don't, this land enters tapped. Tap to add a forest or a plains. Fury Calm Snarl. The land, as this land enters, you may reveal a mountain or a plains card from your hand. If you don't, this land enters tapped. Tap to add a mountain or a plains. Game Trail. It's a land that, as this land enters, you may reveal a mountain or a forest card from your hand. If you don't, this land enters tapped. Tap to add a mountain or forest. Interesting that those 3 were all together, but some of the other sets of 3 aren't together. Mossfire Valley. It's a land, tap 1 in the land to add a mountain and a forest to your mana pool. Rootbound Crag. It's a land that enters tapped unless you control a mountain or a forest. Tap to add a mountain or a forest. Rugged Prairie. It's a land that taps for colorless, or you can pay a mountain or a plains tap to add 2 mountains, or a mountain and a plains, or 2 plains. Scavenger Grounds. It's a land desert that taps for a colorless. You can also pay 2 and tap, sacrifice a desert, exile all graveyards. So obviously being able to exile graveyards if you have nothing you want to get back from your graveyard is helpful, because you then potentially stop an opponent from dumping stuff into their graveyard to bring it back. Slayer's Stronghold. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can pay a mountain and a plains tap. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains vigilance and haste until end of turn. So being able to buff a creature and give it vigilance and haste, for two different color mana is helpful and depending on the situation. Spire of Industry. It's a land that taps for a colorless, or you can tap, pay a life, add 1 mana of any color, activate only if you control an artifact. So, I mean, it allows mana fixing if you're willing to deal with losing a life, which obviously life's a resource. Sungrass Prairie. It's a land that you can pay 1, tap it, add a forest and a plains. So 1 mana to get you 2 mana, one of each of 2 different colors. Sun Petal Grove. It's a land that enters tapped unless you control a forest or plains. Tap to add a forest or plains. So again, odd that these cards aren't all together. Sunscorched Divide. It's a land that you pay 1 and tap to add a mound and the plains. Zac Fair, it's a legendary creature, a human soldier for a 0/1 legendary creature human soldier for a plains. Zac Fair enters with a 1/1 counter on it. Okay, so that seems oddly specific that it's a 0/1 that enters with a 1/1 counter, but I guess where there's stuff to either remove counters or double counters, it could be either harmful or helpful. Pay 1, sacrifice Zac Fair, target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. Put Zac Fair's counters on that creature and attach an equipment that was attached to Zac Fair to that creature. Okay, so I guess where you could move counters from this guy to something else the and a equipment attached to it to another creature, I guess that could potentially be helpful. Yes, you have to sack it to move the stuff, but if you're maybe choose to block him, sack him to move it to something else, you maybe prevent the opponent from dealing damage because you declare a blocker, but then you potentially make another creature you control bigger to maybe take a blow from something else. Barrett Wallace. It's a 4/4 legendary creature, a human rebel for 3 in a mountain. Has reach. Whenever Barrett Wallace attacks, it deals damage equal to the number of the number of equipped creatures you control to defending player. So obviously, where this deck cares about equipments, have a few equip creatures out, and all of a sudden you drop that to deal damage whenever he attacks. Dispatch. It's an instant for a plains. Tap target creature. Millcraft. If you control 3 or more artifacts, exile that creature. Secret Rendezvous. It's a sorcery for 1 and 2 planes. You and target opponent each draw 3 cards. I mean, I like drawing cards. I don't know if I really want to allow my opponent to draw 3 cards, but I guess there's times that trade-offs worth it. Furious Rise. It's a enchantment for 2 and a mound. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until you exile another card with this enchantment. Vanda Blast. It's a sorcery for a mountain. Destroy target artifact you don't control. And then it has an overload cost for 4 in a mountain. The reminder text says you may cast a spell for its overload cost. If you do, change the word target in the text to each. So for the overload cost, instead of destroy target artifact you don't control, it would say destroy each artifact you control. So very helpful if you're not stealing those artifacts of your opponents. You're potentially destroying one or all of them. Cultivate. It's a sorcery for 2 in the forest. Search your library for up to 2 basic lands. Reveal those cards. Put one onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle. So I don't know how many people watching this are familiar with this card. It's been around for probably a decade or so. You know, a very good ramp spell because not only are you grabbing 2 lands, but one's getting played and one's going to your hand. So, you know, if you have no lands in hand, you automatically get 1 for your next turn, or this turn if you haven't played your land for a turn. Harmonize. It's a sorcery for 2 and 2 forest. Draw 3 cards. So it's kind of interesting because it's one more generic than the Secret Rendezvous, but you're not, for that 1 extra, you're not letting your opponent also draw 3, so I'd rather pay the 1 more to not give my opponent a card draw. Nature's Lore. It's a sorcery for 1 in a forest. Search your library for a forest card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So again, another ram card. Given it's very specific as far as, you know, the kind of land, it's specifically looking for a forest, so I don't know if you'd, when you go to upgrade this, if you'd want to switch that out for something that's closer to cultivate but not cultivate, because then you have a little bit more diversity in what you'd be searching. And obviously commanders a singleton format, so you couldn't have 2 cultivates, but you could have cultivate and something that does something similar with a different name. Rampant Growth. It's a sorcery for 1 in a forest. Search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Behemoth Sledge. So this is another card that I recognize from maybe a decade or so ago, possibly more, I don't remember exactly. It's an artifact equipment for 1, a forest and a plains. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has trample and lifelink. The equip cost is 3. So actually, I might be leaning towards possibly more than a decade, just because the first copy I had of this actually didn't say lifelink. It had like the text written out, you know, it had the +2/+2 trample part, but then it was like, and whenever you deal damage, you gain that much life, or something that was worded as if it was lifelink, but it wasn't called lifelink. So, probably easily a decade or more old. Arcane Signet, and obviously, the Final Fantasy theme picture. It's an artifact for 2. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, which, obviously Arcane Signet is a staple in any commander deck, which is why it's in here. Colossus Hammer. It's an artifact equipment for 1. Equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying. The equip cost is 8. I mean, honestly, playing it out for 1 and then whenever you're ready, equipping for 8 unless you have something to reduce the cost of equip costs. You know, being able to give your creature 10/10, +10/+10, like that's worth potentially having your, a creature lose flying to give it that much of a buff. Explorer's Scope. It's an artifact equipment for 1. Whenever equipped creature attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. Equip 1. The reminder text says tap 1, attach it to target creature you control. Equip only as a sorcery. Sort of has that explore feel, only without the possibility of giving 1/1 counters, just because you're looking at the top card, and if it's a land, you're able to do something with it. Hero's Blade. It's an artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature gets +3/+2 whenever a legendary you control enters. You may attach this equipment to it. The equip cost is 4. Now, where the Final Fantasy set seems to care a lot about legendary cards, this wouldn't be too hard to drop a legendary creature and then have this say, well, I see legendary, I'm equipping to it. Heirloom. It's an artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. As long as equipped creature is legendary, it has trample and haste. Equip cost is 2. Lightning Greaves. It's an artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature has haste and shroud. The reminder text says it can't be the target of spells or abilities. The equip cost is 0, which is unusual but not unheard of. I feel like this artifact equipment was used in a specific deck that cared about equipping to trigger something, and then equipping to another creature, and then equipping to another creature to just keep triggering some ability. I want to say it was like Nadu or something, but I don't remember what the triggers did. Mask of Memory. It's an artifact equipment for 2. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards. If you do, discard a card. The equip cost is 1. I mean, feels like a drawback. You draw 2 cards to have to discard 1. I mean, yes, you're gonna discard your worst card in hand, but I don't like having to like discard if I don't have to. Like, yeah, it's card advantage by drawing, but you're discarding. So kind of on the fence about that one. Skull Clamp. It's an artifact equipment for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. The equip cost is 1. That sort of sounds like an older card. I don't remember what it was, but it definitely had that like +1/-1 and might have drawn cards, but it might not have been 2. Like it might have been 1. I don't remember. So, if you're familiar with that particular older card, I want to say it might have been like late 90s, early 2000s. If you're familiar with the card that sounds similar to Skull Clamp, leave a comment down below so you can help me remember. Soul Ring, another staple for Commander. It's an artifact for 1 that taps to add 2 colorless mana. Trailblazer's Boots. It's an artifact equipment for 2. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk. The reminder text says it can't be blocked as long as defending player controls a non-basic land. Equip cost is 2. Ash Barrens. It's a land that taps for a colorless basic land cycling 1. The reminder text says pay 1 mana, discard this card, search your library for basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. And I mean, where it only taps for a colorless, and you have other stuff that taps for colorless, I could see cycling, evolving wild. It's a land that you tap and sacrifice this land, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. I mean, it doesn't tap for mana, so could go either way unless there's a way you can make lands tap per mana. I think it's Chrome Lantern or something does that. Given this, you can sacrifice this to search for a basic land, so you can thin your deck with this, but I mean, I don't know, I never was big on sacrificing just to thin your deck. You'd almost think you could put a better land in that slot, but I guess depending on the situation, that might be helpful. Jungle Shrine. It's a Trinome land. This land enters tapped. Tap to add a forest, or sorry, tap to add a mountain, forest, or plains. I know some people don't care about the order, but I'd rather stay it in the order it shows up on the card if I can. Passive Ancestry. It's a land this land enters tapped. Tap to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. The reminder text says look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom. Radiant Grove. It's a land, forest, plains. The reminder text says tap to add a forest or plains. This land enters tapped. Sacred Peaks. The land Mountain Plains, the reminder text says tap to add a mountain or a plains. This land enters tapped. Woodland Ridgeline. To land a mountain forest, the reminder text says to tap to add a mountain or a forest. This land enters tapped. So would you look at that? They had all three of the different color combinations together for lands, which they didn't do with most of the lands, but that's neither here nor there. Command Tower, another commander staple, and it says commander in the name of the card. To land that taps to add one mana of any color in your commander identity. Now we have some basic lands. So we have 3 mountains, each with different arts. These are full art cards, which is kind of nice. Then we have 3 forests, which they're all different arts. And then we have 3 plains, which again are all different different arts. And then we are to the tokens. So for tokens, we have 8 soldier tokens. All 8 the backs are rebel tokens. The soldier tokens are just 1/1s with no keywords. The rebel tokens are 2/2s with no keywords. Then we have 2 treasure tokens with the back being foretell tokens. It says after you foretell a card, you may place this. You may play the exile card here. You may cast it on a later turn for its foretell cost. So it's kind of not so much a token, I guess, as is a placeholder to remind you that you're playing it later. So hopefully you found some value in the Limit Break commander deck. It's a red, green, white commander deck. The two suggested commanders. One is Cloud X Soldier. The other one is Tifa Martial Artist. So thanks and have a good day.